A skinny kid, barely 200 pounds, standing at half court, staring down a defender twice his size. Everyone in the building thinks they know what happens next. They're wrong. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about basketball. It's a story about a man who turned one-on-one moments into legend, who took the loneliest situation in sports, just you, the ball, and one man trying to stop you, and turned it into his personal stage. This is the story of Stephen Curry's greatest one-on-one moments, and trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why defenders still get nervous just thinking about guarding him. Let's rewind the clock a little. Before the championships, before the MVP trophies, before his name became a synonym for impossible shot, Stephen Curry was just a guy nobody wanted to guard one-on-one. Not because he was flashy. Not because he was the biggest or the strongest. But because every single time you thought you had him trapped, he found a way out. And that's where our story really begins. Go back to Curry's early years in the league. He was still growing into his body, still finding his footing in a league full of grown men who were bigger, stronger, and more experienced. But even then, there were flashes. Nights when a defender would get switched onto him, thinking it was an easy matchup, and within seconds, that same defender would be stumbling backward, embarrassed, as Curry blew right past them or pulled up in their face for three. Coaches around the league started noticing something strange. You couldn't just throw any defender on Curry and expect it to work. He didn't need picks. He didn't need screens. Give him a sliver of space, one-on-one, and he'd find a way to make you pay. Now let's talk about the moment a lot of people point to as the turning point. The game where the whole basketball world sat up and said, "Wait a minute, this guy is different." It was against one of the toughest, most relentless defenders in the league, a player known for locking guys down, someone who took pride in shutting down scorers. And for a while, it looked like that plan was working. Every possession, this defender fought through screens, stayed attached to Curry like glue, refused to give an inch. But then something shifted. Curry stopped waiting for his teammates to free him up. He decided to just go get it himself. He caught the ball at the top of the key, stared his defender down for a second, like he was reading a book only he could see, and then, bang, a hesitation dribble that made the defender freeze for just a heartbeat. That heartbeat was all Curry needed. He exploded left, pulled up from a spot that shouldn't even be a shot, and buried it in his face. The crowd didn't even have time to react before he did it again. And again. By the fourth quarter, that same defender who started the game with total confidence was now bracing for impact every time Curry touched the ball. That's the thing about facing Curry one-on-one. The fear isn't in what he's already done to you. It's in knowing he can do it again in about 2 seconds. Let's talk about another unforgettable one-on-one duel, one that still gets brought up whenever people argue about who owns the title of best shooter to ever live. Curry was matched up against a rival point guard, a fierce competitor with a reputation just as strong as his own. These two had history. Every time they played each other, it felt like two gunslingers walking into the same saloon, both knowing only one of them was walking out with bragging rights. In this particular game, midway through the third quarter, the two got switched onto each other. The whole arena seemed to lean forward at once, sensing something special was about to happen. Curry brought the ball up slow, almost lazy, like he was in no rush at all. Then, without warning, he snapped into a crossover so quick that the defender's ankles nearly gave out trying to keep up. The crowd let out that unmistakable sound, the gasp before the explosion, and Curry rose up for a three that barely touched the net. Cameras caught his rival shaking his head, not in anger, but in respect. Because even the fiercest competitors knew, when Curry got you one-on-one like that, all you could do was tip your cap and get back on defense. But if we're talking about the single most legendary one-on-one battle, the one people still replay in slow motion, we have to go to the biggest stage of them all. Game 7. The Finals. Everything on the line. No tomorrow. In these moments, most players get tight. Their shoulders tense up, their feet get heavy, their decisions get slower. Not Curry. If anything, big moments seem to unlock something in him, like he'd been training his whole life just to be calm in chaos. Late in that game, with the score painfully close and every possession feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds, Curry found himself isolated against one of the most gifted, unpredictable scorers of his generation. The two locked eyes for a split second, like boxers before the bell. Curry dribbled at the top of the arc, patient, almost teasing. Then he crossed hard right to left, took one hard dribble backward to create just enough space, and rose up. The arena went completely silent for a fraction of a second, that terrifying, beautiful silence right before a shot decides everything. Then the ball dropped through the net, and the building exploded. That single shot, born from a one-on-one battle with a legend on the game's biggest stage, became one of the most iconic moments in basketball history. Not because of hype. Not because of luck. Because Curry, when it mattered most, trusted himself to win the one-on-one fight when everything was on the line. Now, let's slow down and talk about the psychological side of these battles, because that's really what made Curry so terrifying to guard. It wasn't just his handle, although that alone could break ankles. It wasn't just his shot, although that alone could break hearts. It was the fact that defenders never knew which weapon was coming next. Traditional shooters you could predict. Give them space and they shoot. Take away space and they're stuck. But Curry flipped that formula upside down. Take away his space, and he'd just shoot from somewhere space didn't even seem to exist. Give him space, and he'd blow right past you before you even blinked. One-on-one against Curry wasnated a math problem where the rules kept changing every single possession. There's a story from behind the scenes, whispered among players around the league, about how practice sessions with Curry became almost a rite of passage. Young defenders, hungry to prove themselves, would ask for the challenge of guarding him one-on-one just to test their skills. Almost every single one of them walked away with the same look on their face, a mixture of awe and slight embarrassment. Because even in practice, even with no crowd, no cameras, no pressure, Curry treated every one-on-one rep like it was Game 7 of the finals. That relentless competitiveness, hidden behind that friendly smile and boyish face, is exactly what turned him into a nightmare matchup. Let's go back to another unforgettable duel, this time against a defender who had built his entire reputation on being a lockdown stopper, the kind of player who took pride in shutting down the league's best scorers, night after night. This defender came into the matchup with total confidence, telling anyone who'd listen that he wasn't afraid of Curry's reputation. For the first quarter, it looked like he might actually back up his words. Tight defense, contested shots, a couple of misses. But basketball has a funny way of humbling confidence. In the second quarter, Curry caught the ball on the wing, stared down his defender, and started walking him down like a hunter closing in on prey. He took one hard dribble, sold a fake step back, and when the defender bit, Curry blew right past him for an easy finish at the rim. The next time down, same matchup, except this time Curry didn't even bother driving. He simply rose up over the top of a tight contest and drained a three so smooth it looked like he was shooting uncontested in an empty gym. By the end of the game, that same confident defender was visibly frustrated, hands on his hips, staring at the scoreboard like it had personally betrayed him. Here's what makes these one-on-one moments so special to look back on. It wasn't really about the individual plays themselves. It was about what those plays represented. Curry never had prototypical size. He wasn't the strongest player on the floor. In a league obsessed with power and dominance, he proved that footwork, timing, and supreme confidence could dismantle even the most physically gifted defenders. Every one-on-one battle became a quiet rebellion against the idea that only the biggest and strongest could dominate the game. And maybe that's why these moments resonate so deeply with fans everywhere. Because most of us aren't the biggest, strongest, most naturally gifted person in the room either. Most of us have had to find our own way to compete, to prove ourselves, using whatever tools we actually have instead of the ones we wish we had. Watching Curry take down bigger, stronger, more athletic defenders one-on-one feels like watching an underdog story play out in real time, over and over again, every single season. Let's talk about one more unforgettable clash, because no story about Curry's one-on-one dominance is complete without mentioning the time he faced a defender who was not only bigger, but genuinely one of the most versatile, switchable defenders in the entire league. Someone coaches specifically used to guard elite scorers when switches happened. Basketball minds around the league expected this matchup to finally slow Curry down. For a few minutes, it seemed like it might. But then, late in the game, with the shot clock winding down and no easy options left, Curry decided to just settle the argument himself. He isolated at the top of the key, dribbled side to side like he was testing the water before diving in, and then, with barely a second left on the clock, snapped a killer crossover that sent his defender stumbling to the side. Curry calmly rose up and drained the shot right before the buzzer. The broadcast cameras caught the exact moment the defender realized what had happened, that brief, almost comedic look of disbelief, like he just watched a magic trick he still couldn't explain. What ties all of these moments together isn't just the highlight reel value, even though yes, they're incredible to watch. It's the mindset behind them. Curry never played one-on-one basketball out of ego. He played it out of necessity, out of preparation, out of thousands of hours spent perfecting his craft long before anyone was watching. Every crossover, every step back, every game-winning shot in an isolation battle was the result of relentless repetition, quiet gym sessions, and an unshakable belief that no matter who stood in front of him, he had already won the mental battle before the physical one even started. And that's really the heart of this story. Stephen Curry's greatest one-on-one moments aren't just about basketball highlights. They're proof of what happens when preparation meets opportunity, when confidence is built through countless hours nobody sees, and when someone refuses to be defined by the doubts other people place on them. Every single time a defender stepped up to challenge him one-on-one, Curry didn't just accept the challenge. He seemed to welcome it, almost invite it, like he'd been waiting his whole life for exactly that moment. So the next time you watch a Curry highlight, and you see him break someone's ankles, or rise up over a bigger defender, or calmly bury a shot in the biggest moment of a game, remember what's really happening. You're not just watching a great shooter. You're watching a masterclass in mental toughness, footwork, and fearless confidence. A story that started with a skinny kid nobody believed in, and turned into one of the most electrifying one-on-one legacies the game of basketball has ever seen. And who knows? Maybe his greatest one-on-one moment hasn't even happened yet.